Welcome on stage our next set of panelists to discuss the new silver bullet, infrastructure, how to build an entire ecosystem for JV infrastructure projects, including a major ancillary sector for rail transport and more.
Very warm welcome to all of you here. The subject, infrastructure, a silver bullet. Infrastructure is something that India needs, and we have been on a pretty decent journey, and that journey will not stop, at least not in the near future. And infrastructure for the companies that make these wonderful technologies and the products that help us build our infrastructure, and infrastructure for the common person means two different things really. For the common man, it would manifest in better airports, better railways, better roads, highways, less traffic jams, cleaner air, water in the context of India, power, availability of power which is uninterrupted and of good quality. And these are the companies that really make it happen. And what I'm going to do in the half an hour or so that we have for this session is to get all the four panelists to make quick opening remarks, like maybe just 1.5 minutes to set up. Aalok, the collaboration point that Bharat spoke about, would I be right in getting you to reflect on this on your opening remarks, that more than 3 decades, Japan has proven to be an all-weather friend when it comes to infrastructure in India?
Absolutely. And I think, the minister opened the morning on some similarities of India and Japan. I just want to pause for a moment and all of us to reflect upon this. India is a society that is in hurry. We are a generation that is in a hurry. We want to get there faster than anybody else has been there on this planet. And where I'm getting with that point is that, therefore, it's no surprise that we as a country are at the same point of nation building today that Japan found itself 40 to 50 years back. And there is huge amount of learning that we can draw from how Japan built its country and what is needed in India. So I just want to broaden the aperture a little bit to say that infrastructure just doesn't mean putting rail tracks and making bridges and making airports. It's also about how do we improve the user experience so that the amount of time that an average individual spends in getting by, for example, from a place A to B, improves. Getting through airport, it's a nightmare in India. Can we automate it? Can we make it faster? Can we make it simpler? Can we make it easier for a common man? And this is where we as a company, as a corporation, needs to really invest our energies around. And I think Japan has a humongous amount of learning to bring back to India.
Light.
Aalok, I'm coming to you, and whenever we talk about infrastructure in a very generalized sense, it's mostly physical infrastructure that's spoken about. I don't know how many people in the audience are aware that around 2 years back, we managed to connect the Indian mainland to Andamans. And the company that did the fiber optic cable, Aalok, is NEC. And it's not just about road connectivity, it's also about digital connectivity. On that, what I want you to tell our audience is how difficult is execution. Faisal spoke about how things are getting faster when it comes to the overall thing, but in terms of the execution part of the challenge, what would you say?
Well, a short answer to this is it's really difficult.
It is really difficult?
It is really difficult to execute in India. And I don't, I'm trying to be brutally honest over here, because if we are not staring at the mirror, we'll not find a solution. I think India is a very complex polity. There is federal government, there is state government, our infrastructure the word infrastructure that we call, has many subjects in it. Some of these subjects are central subjects and some of these are state subjects. And for a Japanese company, or for that matter for any company, even for an SME, the rules of the game is different at different levels. And if the rules keeps changing, an organization needs to be that much more nimble, that much more resilient to be able to successfully execute projects that are centrally funded, centrally governed, and state funded, state governed. The big point I'm trying to make is that while at a G to G level, at a government to government level, there is a very, very strong understanding between India and Japan and how Japan wants to support India. I think we need to do more work in permeating that understanding and that sense of urgency down into the front line of the country where all the execution happens. And a part of this is not intention. So I don't want the audience to be confused that I'm alluding to the intention is not there. The intention is always there. But I hold a principle which says while growth can be described by many formulas, my pet formula is growth is equal to intention times ability.
Okay.
While you may have a lot of intention to do things, if you don't have the ability to do it, you're not going to go too far. And I think the challenge in execution in India is that we need to build ability at the ground level. Ability of project governance, ability of institutions that are responsible for making sure that those projects gets executed. It's not about funding anymore. I 100% agree with Mr. Gadkari that it's not about funds. India today can attract as much fund as it can, but it needs to get invested, executed properly. And I think the government and the private sector need to think collaboratively and cooperatively as to what is the ecosystem we build, where projects that can get funded irrespective of wherever from gets executed with a certain sense of urgency. And I think that is the biggest challenge that we have as a country.
Faisal, do you agree? Alok, I'll let you have the final word on this panel today as we wind up, and this is to take your thoughts here for the viewers on the digital infrastructure bit. One of the biggest projects that we are now looking at is the open network for, and some call it as a project that is aimed at certain e-commerce players. But leave that aside, what do you really think it is going to lead to?
Just before I get to that answer, see, I firmly believe that the role of technology, or for that matter, foreign infrastructure, should be to make the society more productive today than it was yesterday. And if that infrastructure and if that digital investment is not driving that, then I think that's money getting wasted. I think the digital revolution that is currently happening in the country, there are many things that our citizens are experiencing that they have not experienced the basic, but they have leapfrogged into something else. I'll give you an example. Aadhaar card. It's for many people it may be seen as just a number that goes in your pocket, but for us who have powered the entire Aadhaar card infrastructure, for us it's giving a voice to a citizen. It is now slowly becoming the basis on which your identity, your subsidies, your way of how you are growing and progressing is dependent on. We've just launched a project, in 4 airports where through a program called DigiYatra, which was in news just about a week back, where your face becomes your identity. You walk into the airport and based on your facial recognition, you don't have to touch anything. You don't have to go to any counter, no kiosk. You are automatically checked in and your face becomes the boarding pass to get to the... Now, these are revolutionary experiences that our citizens need to have. Imagine the impact that the airports will have, the amount of traffic and throughput it can handle. And in doing that, the serpentine queues that our citizens are able to avoid, which means, again, going back to the point I was making, we are in a society which is in a hurry, right? So we've got to create infrastructure that answers to that challenge. It is not about just putting a rail track. It is not just about putting bridges. It's about efficiency of throughput. It's about how quickly can we get our citizens to experience what they want to experience. And it is their right. So I think digital will play a massive role in compressing the time that this geography, this country needs to become a superpower. And, I was just going to add to that. Somebody in the beginning of the panel, we were talking about, how fast are we going to multiply our growth. India reached the first trillion of its GDP in 36 years. The third trillion was reached in 11 years. The fifth trillion is supposed to be reached in 3 years' time. That's the momentum and velocity with which we are moving, right? So I think digital is here to play that role. It can be the magic glue, the super glue that puts it all together. And that is critical in making sure that India truly reaches the place that it deserves to reach.
We've just been given a few more minutes, so I want to take that one last topic that was on my mind throughout this panel. And this is, while we talk about infrastructure, world-class infrastructure, the B2B part of it, there's a consumer part of it which is also important, which is the ability of the Indian user to pay for it. Aalok?
Look, the age-old, definition of demand economics. If there is demand, there will be supply, and you will get the price. The question is that, are we crafting the right value proposition that a customer is ready to pay for? This is not a customer's problem. This is our problem. We have to unbundle the challenge of project execution and infrastructure and everything that we talked about. And we have to take it to the lowest common multiple and say, in what shape and form do I deploy the right technology at the right place at the right cost so that they get paid for it? Of course, in doing all of this, we have to take a long-term view. Somebody has to pay for it for a long term so that, the gestation period and the payback comes through. But I don't think we should work with a notion where we say that, oh yeah, we are bringing great technology to you, but the customer is not ready to pay. No, I think you just can't cheat and cut and copy and paste, because we are a different country. We are hugely, the span on economic, per capita income is huge in our country. And if you have the right value proposition designed, I think the consumers will pay for it. You have to be able to craft it and articulate it well, both of the jobs that we don't do very well in our country.
I'm going to come. Wonderful. Thank you so much.